Hey there my lovelies, and welcome to my booktube channel, The Sassy Library Fox. My name is V, and today I'm going to talk about my May wrap-up. And May has been quite the wild month. At least for me it was. Lots of health troubles, appointments. I had to finish my course, or I'm actually still finishing my last course. So soon I will be done with my educational sabbatical, which means I'm also looking for jobs and I'm currently applying. And well, it was a lot. So I didn't read all too many books in May. I only managed to read 4 books, but actually those 4 books were great, except of one which I rated with 3 paws, but I will get to that once I wrap up this video. And well, I guess without further ado, let's just jump into my wrap up of May. And yeah, I already said it. I need my coffee, I'm sorry. I don't know if you see it on cam, but I'm just very tired, and yeah, I need to hold on to my coffee. Okay, anyway, enough of that. The first book I finished in May, which I already mentioned in my last wrap-up video, and I said that I will take it into May and that I will talk about this book in May more thoroughly, is The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wang. And this book, wow, this book was really amazing. I read it as a buddy read with Ellie at Bibbidi Bobbidi Books. And we both had so much fun reading this book, but we also kind of suffered together because this book was really something else. It was basically in the fantasy genre, and I expected it to be some sort of medieval Japanese world, but it turned out, and that pretty fast, that they actually have technology, and that just that part where they live is kind of traditional and living the old ways without any technology. So only Kaigen itself was actually a country in which the people didn't have that technology yet. That was quite interesting because I thought this book would have some sort of medieval touch or antique touch at least, but no, they lived in modern times. They just didn't know about all those technical things yet. So that was quite interesting. I loved that we had 2 point of views. We had Mamoru, who is the 14-year-old son of Misaki, and Misaki was the second point of view. And let me tell you, those character arcs were done so well. I loved this book for so many reasons, but one of them is definitely the characters. The characters were really so well thought out, and you could see their character arc. You could live with them through it. You saw the mistakes they made, the things they discovered about themselves. It was done so well. Honestly, I rarely read an as amazing character arc as the one of Misaki. And that says a lot because I've read about a gazillion character arcs in my lifetime so far. And I really like this, that the fighting scenes were so wow. I was reading those fighting scenes and I was holding my breath quite literally. I know I always dislike it when people write this in books, but honestly, I was glued to the pages. I was at the edge of my seat. I really wanted to know how the fight would end. And it was done so well. And another thing, I know a lot of people won't like this because we have a lot of action at the beginning of the book, and then we are kind of confronted with the aftermath of the war. And I know a lot of people are used to fantasy books having all the action at the end or near the ending, and the aftermath of a war is rarely addressed or given any space. And I really like that about this book, that there was room given to the aftermath of war and to the characters to work through what happened, to work through their trauma, and to kind of, I don't know, rebuild what they've lost. So that was really perfectly done. I have so much respect for the author for pulling this off, because even after all the action was done, there was never a dull moment. Quite honestly, my heart broke at so many scenes in this book, and it was great. It was really, really great. And I think I rated this book with 5 paws, and those 5 paws, they were so well deserved. Really, really, this book, if you haven't read it yet, if you want a different approach to fantasy, if you don't mind seeing the aftermath of a war, if you like amazing fighting scenes, if you kind of want to have your heart broken, then that's the book for you. Okay, the second book I read in May is Loveless by Oseman. And yeah, I'm just looking at the cards every once in a while so that I don't forget to talk about any of the books I read. Anyway, Loveless, back to Oseman. It was actually the last book of Oseman I haven't read, and now I've read it as well. And this book, I think there's something to be said about Oseman's writing style, because at first, when you go into her books, they don't seem to be all too special. The plot is just running along, you get introduced to the characters. Nothing special is happening at first, or not a lot is happening. And for some reason, by the end of the book, it feels like all those characters became your friends, and that you connected so much to them. I have no idea how Alice does it. It must be some sort of her magic. I have no other explanation for that. But yes, at the beginning it's always just a normal story, but it gets so much more once you've reached the ending. And this happens with Loveless as well. And quite honestly, Loveless gets at least 4.5 paws from me. I don't know, there were some things that weren't that, I don't know, well thought out, or some things I think should have been addressed more, so it's 4.5 paws. On Goodreads, I actually gave it 5 stars, because quite honestly, if I had to round it up or down, I'd definitely round it up. So yeah, the book is basically about Georgia, who comes to college and figures out a lot of things about herself. We have an arrow ace representation in this book, and yes, it's actually both, it's arrow and ace. I really like that representation. I could relate to a lot of things that were said in the book, or that other characters said. This book honestly made me think so much, because it kind of forced me to confront myself once again and to question certain things about myself, which is always a plus if you ask me. It's always good if a book makes you think and feel. And yeah, what can I say? Georgia's love life is quite a mess in this one, but I love Georgia's journey, how she came to terms with being our ace, how her friendship to her roommate developed. I mean, they were complete opposites of each other, but they still worked so well, and the diversity in this book was really, once again, amazing. Alice has a way to put a lot of diversity into her books without it seeming unnatural or unreal. She just has a way to go for it and make it totally natural, the way it should be actually. Because Jason, the love interest, has two dads, and we have a non-binary character as well. We have Sunil, and Sunil was such a mood. Honestly, I loved Sunil so much. Sunil is one of my favorite Alice Oseman people now. I really wish we would have gotten even more of him, but yeah, Sunil is non-binary. He goes by he, them pronouns, but interestingly, he is always just addressed as he in the books. And that was something I found really interesting. I mean, it makes it probably easier to go through with the book, I don't know, but I really would have liked to have him addressed as they at some points as well, and that didn't happen. So I don't know if Alice did this on purpose, but I found it kind of curious that he's non-binary but only was mentioned with he, him pronouns. So yeah, that's just a me thing, because I know that a lot of gender fluid or non-binary people or demigender people actually use the pronouns on the days they feel like them. So one day you would want to be addressed with they, them, and another day probably with he, him. So that this didn't take any place, or that this wasn't addressed in the book, was something I found very interesting. But honestly, maybe it's just a me thing. I think it's just a me thing. Anyway, enough of that. The other representation was amazing. I mean, we have Pip. Pip is Latinx and she's a lesbian. And Rooney, George's roommate, is kind of questioning during the book. So this was really great. I loved all the representation and all the different characters. I also liked that Alice didn't shy away from addressing certain topics like hostility inside of the LGBTQIA+ community, because she actually wrote a character into the book that was really unfriendly to other members of the community and didn't like the way Sunil ran Pride's Rock. So I loved that scene when Sunil gave him a piece of his mind. Great, absolutely great. And yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. If you want to read a book with a lot of representations, a lot of diversity, and an actual ROA's representation that was done so very well and relatable, and that questions our heteronormative view of things, then this book is for you, because I really loved that this was addressed and that we are forced to acknowledge that we're basically raised to believe in the family of a father, mother and child, and that romance is everything, and that friendships aren't as strong as love, which is quite honestly not true, because some friendship will accompany you until the rest of your life, and you will have contact with those people when love is already gone, to say it like that. So yeah, I really like that this book made me question so many things, and therefore it gets 5 pulls. The third book I read in May was A Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden. And it was actually a book I got as an ARC. Kate asked me if I wanted to read her book, and I said yes. And I honestly don't regret it. It was so much fun. I had a very good time. It basically plays in some sort of fantasy world in which there are fairies and there are different kingdoms which are all named after stones. So Onyx, for instance, is the kingdom. And Aaron, our main protagonist and our heroine, is a healer and one day she kind of gets, or well, she actually gets abducted by soldiers of the Onyx kingdom because her brother stole money from them, and she has to, or she decides to work off his debt, and so that the soldiers won't go after him and kill him and her family. Okay, so she lands in the dungeons of the Onyx kingdom, and she meets a nice stranger there, or well, nice. It's some sort of hate-love relationship with the other prisoner, but it was fun. I really enjoyed the dynamic of those two. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, those two were great together. I loved their easy banter, the conversations, the tension that built between those two, and it was just fun. I mean, if you're a fan of the tropes, don't touch her or you die, or if you're a fan of the trope, who did this to you, then you'll definitely like Kaigen. So yeah, I think the heroine was very naive sometimes and pretty gullible. She had the heart at the right place, but it's definitely one of those books where you have an alpha male and a very gullible and naive heroine that might be strong in some ways, because Aaron doesn't take any shit, that's true. But she is also very, I don't know, she made some stupid decisions. And she's very young, and yeah. I think I'll leave it at that. So I think in general she was a great character, an interesting one, but for me personally she was just a tiny bit too naive. But aside of that, I gave this book 4 paws, and I don't regret anything. I love to read this one. I hope that in the second book, it was the first in a series, that in the second book the world will be explained a little bit more. Most of the book just played in the Onyx kingdom, and I really want to discover the other kingdoms as well and get to know more of their people, and I just want a little bit more world building in the next books, and I hope they deliver. But the fact that I'm actually going to read the second book says enough about my enjoyment of this book. The banter was top notch, honestly. On point. Okay, and now we get to the last book I read in May, and it was actually pretty a close call. I finished it on the 31st of May so that it could go into my wrap-up, and it was Kiss and Tell by Adib Khorram. Sadly, really sadly, and this saddens me a lot, this book got only 3 paws from me for various reasons, which I will talk about now. But before I do that, I will take a sip of my coffee. I need to find some strength to talk about the book. I even have it here next to me. Here's the book. I absolutely love that gorgeous cover. The cover is amazing. I love the pastel colors and the way the band members are drawn. But yeah, unfortunately, this book didn't really work out all too well for me. I read it as a buddy read with Sabrina. Hey there, Sabrina. She's the young YouTuber V, as you already know, or as some of you might know. People new to the channel wouldn't know that. But we do a lot of buddy reads, and we decided to go for Kiss and Tell as well. I had so many high hopes for this one, but unfortunately it didn't really live up to my expectations. I read Darius the Great is Not Okay by the same author, and I absolutely loved it, but things didn't work out all too well in this one. Let's just talk about the things I really liked. I really liked that there were some sort of interview clippings and that there were some newspaper articles in between the chapters. They made it very realistic, and like the band was actually existing, and like there was news footage of them and video footage and transcripted video footage of their documentary. And I really liked this aspect of the book. It was probably my favorite aspect of the entire book because it made the band more real and very relatable. If you're part of a fandom, you will really appreciate this. But as for the entire execution of a band member that falls in love with another band member, well, I really liked that the topic of the labels that have such huge impact and influence on the bands that work for them was addressed. I really like that we got to see the kind of split Hunter has to do between his private life and what the label expects him to do. And it was often addressed in the book that the label wanted him to be a certain kind of gay, and that he wasn't too gay in some of the videos they shot or in the photo shootings. They wanted him to dress differently. They wanted him to be worse at skating, or I don't know. It was really the impact the label had on him and his mental health was done very well. I like the fact that it was shown that the label wants its stars to do certain things and to come across as a certain kind of person. This one was really done well, this aspect, and I really liked it. But I wasn't on board with the ship and the development of the relationship between Kaigen. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Please, if anyone knows how you pronounce him, tell me and write it down in the comments below. I'm pretty sure I'm currently butchering his name. But, well, Kaigen and Hunter's relationship was too fast for me. It was insta-love, kind of, and I wasn't on board of it for various reasons. One of them, the interviews Kaigen gave before his band got big, and that aspect of boy bands not being real musicians. I really didn't like that because it was addressed later on in the book, but that was the problem in general I had with the book. There were so many things that were addressed. It was addressed that the label kind of wanted to put Hunter in a certain category of gay man. It was addressed that Hunter was unhappy with it, that his mental health suffered from it. It was addressed that he had a lot of pressure. It was addressed that Kaigen didn't have an all too high opinion about bands, and there were so many things that were addressed, but in the end none of them were really resolved, and this was something I didn't like. Also, I couldn't connect to the other band members. I mean, there is often mentioned that the other band members have to deal with racist slurs and that people write racist comments, and Hunter as a band member knows nothing about it, which I found very unrealistic, because if you are in a band, you know everything about each other. And this band here, the band in this book, has been together since school days. They started out in school together, and you would think that they would know a lot of things about each other. They basically grew up with each other, and I think you can't be, Hunter is made out to be that oblivious guy that always just focuses on himself and his horrible love life and on being the only gay member in the band who has his troubles. But for some reason that doesn't make him, unlikable. I really liked Hunter as a person, but the fact that he was so oblivious it was impossible. I mean, those people, those 5 boys, they spent 24/7 on a bus together. They are on tour together. They are bound to know everything about each other and how the other snores and I don't know what they eat for breakfast. So I found it very unrealistic that Hunter had no idea that his band members had to face troubles like racism and other things as well. And that just didn't work for me. And also the relationship with Kaigen, it felt too insta-lovey. It didn't feel real, especially with all the things Kaigen said about boy bands and the things he thought about them. I don't know, for me this totally didn't work, and what really caused me to give just 3 paws is the fact that we had so many topics that were addressed, but they were never really, I don't know, there was no conclusion to them or not a very satisfying one. And here comes a little spoiler, so if you want to read the book and don't want to hear me talking about the spoiler, you better just continue and click on. But here comes the spoiler. I mean, I really didn't like that we only got the resolution about Kaigen kind of talking bad about boy bands because he was unsure in his sexuality and wanted to come across as straight, and only later on turned his opinion around, because when he spoke to Hunter in one of the scenes, he was surprised they actually had instruments in their bus and that they played instruments as well, because his opinion was that a boy band doesn't play instruments and that they have no talent. And to say and to explain it afterwards with he was insecure in his sexuality and wanted to come across as straight didn't work for me, because he still had this opinion when he was dating Hunter already. He basically said it into his face. So that solution at the end didn't work for me, because for me there was no respect for Hunter if he thinks he can't play an instrument. And he even said that to him when they were already dating. So that didn't work for me. That was kind of, I don't know, not done very well. I mean, if he really would have had this opinion that Hunter is a good musician, and if he only wanted to say this to appear straight on TV, he wouldn't have said this to Hunter when they were just together and the 2 of them. So that didn't work out for me. That was a red flag right there. And one of the main reasons I couldn't ship those 2. And the other thing was that I found it very unrealistic that Hunter had this huge meltdown and breakdown and went to an LGBTQIA+ club. I mean, okay, fair enough, that's okay. He wanted to get out of everything and he just went on a crazy night. I can understand that, but the aftermath of this, I mean, everyone on the internet was at the beginning of the book talking about Aiden giving out their private messages and about the fact that Hunter was a bottom. And everyone was talking about his sex life, and so many people wrote comments, and you could read it in between the chapters, in interviews, and I don't know what else. And then he goes into this nightclub. He basically went against his own band members on live TV, said a lot of mean things and horrible things, live TV, mind you. And then he went to that club, and at the ending the band and him give an interview, and he apologizes for his behavior, but basically all he's saying is, well, I'm sorry I did that. It was pretty uncool of me. It won't happen again. And quite honestly, I really would have liked more of the shitstorm that would have come after this interview, because no fan would have been happy with what he said. I mean, a little bit of more explanations for the fans why he did that would have been helpful. And just to give an honest, and I don't know, it felt so weird. I mean, imagine an actual star doing this kind of thing on live TV, raving and raging against his own band members, calling them out for things, going on a romp in a club. I don't know, there would have been such a huge shitstorm on the internet if this would have been real, and no fan would have accepted an apology like that. It was pretty half-assed, and I think it wasn't done realistically. Usually they would have made a statement, at least the company would have made a statement and would have sent it out into the world, and Hunter would have been given more room to explain why he did the things he did. And also the fact the entire book basically deals with Hunter trying to please the label and trying to be more gay or to appear more gay, and he dresses the way they want him to, he does everything for them. They have really horrible conversations about how he is supposed to react and how he is supposed to act, and they plan all of his and Kaigen's dates. They don't even get a chance to do what they want to do. And at the ending of the book, this is all no problem anymore. All the people of the label are just begging off and say, okay, he can do whatever he wants. And this after throwing such a tantrum on live TV? I don't buy it. I don't buy it. No. So that was really, I think the book had good intentions. I know what Adib Khorram wanted to do with it. He addressed a lot of topics, but he never went into depth with them. He never explored them. He never addressed them really. I don't know, there was never a conclusion or a believable conclusion for me for all the things that happened. So yeah, I think the most realistic thing about this was the shattered relationship between Aiden and Hunter, and the scene where they two talk with each other after all that exposing on the internet was really one that moved me, because for once the feelings felt totally real and raw, and the conversation between those two was really on point. But all the other stuff, the relationship with Kaigen and with Hunter, I don't know, I think they should have been friends after that and probably not gone for a relationship. They barely knew each other, and all the dates they had were with a camera and the label in the background. So I personally don't think that they actually started a relationship after all of this again. But yeah, I'm sorry I've been ranting about this book, or kind of ranting. It wasn't all bad. There were a lot of good aspects, and as I already said, the author tried to address a lot of things that are going wrong in the music industry, but I kind of missed that really deep dive into it, and that things weren't challenged or addressed properly. So yeah, I think I will conclude it with this. And for me, the book got 3 paws. It wasn't all bad. I enjoyed a lot of things as well, but it unfortunately didn't live up to my expectations for all the reasons I just mentioned. And I'm sorry, but this one wasn't a winner. I had such high hopes for this one, but unfortunately it just didn't work out for me. I'm pretty certain a lot of other people will think it's great and will love it, but this one just wasn't for me. Okay, so I think I'm already at the ending of my video. I read 4 books. I spoke about all of them, with some in more depth than about others. But yeah, that's just the way things come to me and what I think while I'm recording this video. I hope I didn't forget anything, but I think I've got all my bases covered. Okay, so I guess this is the ending of my video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, like, subscribe, comment, whatever. Please leave me a comment down below what you've read in May and which books you loved and which books you didn't love. I always like to hear from you and about your reading journey. And well, I guess there's nothing left to say except of take care, stay healthy and safe, and see you around the next time. Bye!